Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and I have a great message for you today about the power and the pain of change. Now, we all know that as human beings, change is a constant, and it's something that's always been a part of being a human being and our life here on this planet. But as we get older, as we get more settled, as we get more comfortable, change is hard and we don't adapt as well as we usually do when we're kids. Kids change quickly and they adapt very quickly with a lot less pain. But as adults, when big things happen and there's change, we don't like it. And if you think about what's happening right now, there's a lot of big change happening that's going to make some permanent shifts in the way that we live our lives and the way that we interact with people, jobs, situations. All these routines that we're used to that are going to change are very, very painful to think about because this is a big thing that's happening. We are in the end of April right now of 2020 where we've had this big virus going around the world and lots of things have shifted. Lots of us have still been hanging out inside of our houses, maybe not working, maybe working remotely, like everything has shifted. Maybe we're not going to our gym, our favorite restaurant, the movies, all these things that we love to do and are part of our routine that maybe we even took for granted have all changed. And things are going to get back to more normal, but there's going to be a new, different normal for a lot of things. In fact, I just heard today that the gym that I teach at is filing for bankruptcy. So there's a very good chance that I might have just taught my last step class. And I've been teaching classes for 40 years. Last October was 40 years of teaching. It was a big celebration in my group, my friends, my class. But I was still planning on teaching for another 5, 10 years. I mean, there's no reason that I couldn't. So that thing might shift. Now, that's not a for sure that I won't be teaching, but I would be sad and I would move on. I think that these things that shift and change always gives us a different perspective. And to me, when things happen that are big, that means something bigger and more beautiful of an opportunity is coming around the corner. In fact, I've always believed that when something bad happens, something better is coming. And it wasn't something that I had all the time from when I was little, and even as an adult, I went through some really hard changes where I thought my life was over and everything was devastated. And, I've gotten let go from a couple of jobs. Obviously, they weren't the right job for me, and they were painful, so painful, but they always led to something bigger and better and more beautiful. So I think that if we look at this as an opportunity to grow and to have a growth mindset where our mind gets to determine what our future looks like, and then the biggest key is going to be to take action, because we can say, okay, I'm all for change and this is going to be great and maybe there's going to be some pain along the way. But if you just sit and wait for things to happen and wait for our government to take care of you or wait for someone else to take care of you or hand a check in the mail to you or put a job in your lap, this is not the kind of change that's going to empower you to have and live your best life. I would take a look at this as an opportunity to really take care of your health. I mean, I've been hearing the saying of the quarantine 15, gaining 15 pounds while we're hunkered in our houses and we're indulging in comfort foods. And I'll admit I've made some chocolate chip cookies a couple times since we've been locked away in the house. And that is definitely a comfort food, but it's not something I'm doing every day. It's something that I'm really just saying, okay, I'm going to do this because it tastes good and it's good. There's little indulgences that you can have that are not what I'm talking about. So I would suggest that you really look at this as an opportunity to take care of your health, get your immune system strong, because here's an idea. And this is something that my friend Jeff Hayes, who's a documentary filmmaker, some of you might be familiar with some of the films he's done, the Revealed series. In fact, he put me in his film Supplements Revealed last year. And he does all the Revealed series. And he's actually a friend of mine who lives here in Salt Lake. We've been hiking buddies for 20 years. And he's very, very thoughtful and deep. And because he's so well traveled all over the world, he has met all these people in the health field and interviewed them and created these documentaries that are really life-changing. So we were hiking the other day, and we were talking about all this stuff that's been happening. And one of the biggest thoughts that came out of this was, right now what we're doing is we're actually not curing this virus. We are slowing it down. And when we all reemerge, whenever that is, whether it's in 2 weeks or 5 months, what's going to happen is the virus is going to start spreading again, because it's not going away. It's simply being slowed down. But it's then the people who have weakened immune systems, unless you are still willing to lock yourself up in your houses and continue to live the life that you're living right now, then this virus is going to go around and do its job. And this is a harsh reality. This is a very, very harsh fact. But the fact of the matter is, this is a time when you should take this opportunity not to gain the quarantine 15 or to simply indulge in comfort foods and just binge on Netflix all the time. This is a time for you to create your most robust immune system. Exercise, get outside, start exercising, drink plenty of water, eat really good food. Give your immune system a chance to do its job for every time during your life, not just during this crazy flu or this crazy virus, but every single flu season. In fact, I'm reading a book called The Great Flu Influenza. It was published a few years ago. It was way before this virus. And it's fascinating. It's a fascinating read about the history of the viruses, and it talks about leading up to the 1918 flu epidemic, which was, of course, one of the most devastating flus that have ever swept around the earth. So it's a fascinating read, and I think that we have a huge opportunity to really level up, have a growth mindset, adapt to change in a big positive way, because change is inevitable. No matter what we do with our life, there's always going to be big changes. And as adults who don't like change, if you can learn to embrace change rather than to fight it and complain about it, then your life is going to be dramatically different in a really good way, no matter what happens. So I would love to hear some feedback from you about what you're doing to help yourself through this hard time of change, because we are in for some permanent changes, I feel. So I hope you have an amazing day. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.